Hey everyone. So have you read this book before? I mean, it's such a popular book, over 70 years in print, many copies sold. Carnegie, like fantastic author here, classic book written in the 1930s. And in the front of the book here, he gives you 9 tips on how to read this book very well. And when I was reading through this book or reading through these 9 tips, I was like, these are tips that like I pretty much use to read through my books and like some additional ones. And I thought that was really cool to see. So if you haven't read this book, then I definitely recommend reading it. For today's video, I want to go over these 9 tips because they are absolutely amazing. So we'll go through each one and kind of discuss a little bit about it. And on a note here, these principles of how to read this book can apply to all books out there. So just to, that we're clear on that aspect. So the very first one is having a deep desire or a purpose. Whenever you're reading a book, you have to have a purpose, some sort of like reason why you're reading it, whether it's helping you to solve a problem, whether it's helping you to develop more of a skill in a certain area. In this book, it's about how to, build up relations with people. So that is the very first one, is just to build up this deep desire for the topic that you're reading about, because, well, if you're not interested in that topic, then there's no sense in reading it. And plus, you may not get a whole lot out of it if your mindset is not set on learning about that topic. Just like when you were going to school, there were certain subjects that you probably didn't like that much. Therefore, you probably didn't learn that much in that class because you were not really motivated to learn about that topic. Same thing goes for books. Whenever you're reading a book, you should be interested, a deep focus on whatever that topic is. And the second one is to read the chapter twice before moving on to the next one. Now, this is one that I haven't really tried before. I mean, I have revisited books before, but I've never read a chapter twice before moving on to the next one. And so I'm trying this out with this book. What Dale Carnegie suggests is to read fast the first time you read the chapter, just to kind of like go over it, get it in your mind. And then the second run through, you slow down a little bit, you have your pen, you take your highlighters, you write in the margins or in your notebook or wherever you decide to write. So yeah, this is one that I'm trying out with this book, and I like it so far. It helps me to remember the takeaways a whole lot better when I read the chapter twice before I even decide to move on to the next chapter. So yeah, this is a really good tip. And the third one here is to frequently stop while you're reading if you have a question that comes up in your mind. I'm a big advocate of asking questions. So whenever I read and then a question pops into my mind, I write that question down, because at a later date or while I'm reading, maybe the book answers that question. And if the book doesn't answer the question, then I can always seek out the answers. And as an avid reader, it's always a really good thing to seek out the answers to the questions you have. If the book doesn't answer it, you need to go search for it yourself. If the book answers it, fantastic, great. You don't really have to go any further unless you want to dive deeper into that topic. So pausing really helps, asking questions really helps, and writing those questions down really helps. And the next one is underscore or highlight each idea that really stands out to you. Of course, you don't want to highlight or underscore the whole entire page, otherwise that would be useless to you. So what I do is I be picky. I'm very picky about what information I'm highlighting or underlining. But if it really stands out or makes me question or makes me like I disagree with it or something like that, I will highlight it. I will underline it. I will take note of it. That way, especially when I go through it the second time, whether I underline it the first time through or I underline it the second time through, when I'm going through the book again, I can see what I thought the very first time or the second time I went through the book. I can kind of have a conversation with myself, and I can dig deeper into that topic by highlighting the areas that I feel are important to my life. So I highly recommend having that highlighter or that pen with you. That way you are taking note of what is important to you at that time of reading. Now, in a previous video that I've made, I talked about the fact that there are very few books out there that are really impactful. Now, this may be one of them. This may be one of them. And this next tip suggests that you go through the book, like revisit it, skim it, basically, looking at the major highlights and underlines that you've made the first, second, third time through, to refresh your memory. So you're going through, maybe you like the book suggests that, leave the book on your desk or something, right? That way you have really easy access, or maybe like right here behind you on your bookshelf or something. That way you can revisit the book. Now, of course, with a crappy book, you're probably not going to want to revisit that. Maybe a long time later, maybe. But if it's a really good book, then of course you want to revisit the book as much as you feel comfortable with. This book suggests revisit it every month to just keep the ideas fresh in your mind, because to be honest, our memories are not perfect. So if we're revisiting certain aspects of the book that really mean a whole lot to us and that we can continue to try and implement in our life, then why not take like 5, 10, 15 minutes once a month, maybe 20 minutes once a month, revisit the book, get the ideas stuck in your mind, and keep on practicing towards perfection. So yeah, that's a good one. That's one that I should do more often with books that I feel like are really impactful. And seriously, the number is so small. Like out of the couple hundred books that I've read and that I own, only a handful of them, maybe a couple handfuls of them, are really, really impactful. So that's a good tip for you to maybe experiment with and see how it turns out for you. And the next tip here is like using this book as like a handbook. A very practical book, has many takeaways that we could try to apply and experiment with. This book suggests that you should experiment with these takeaways at every single opportunity that you can possibly get a chance to do, right? So, I mean, otherwise the book kind of becomes pointless if we're not really doing much with it. So yeah, trying to experiment. Once you read a chapter, maybe practice it and just see how well you do, and try to keep best track of your progress towards achieving whatever goals you have set out to achieve with whatever book that you're reading at that time. And just try to take note of it, because yeah, you need to make progress towards whatever goals you have. And one way to do that is to take note of it and take opportunity as much as you possibly can. I think this is a really important tip from Dale Carnegie. And tip number 7 is kind of a unique one, and I've seen it suggested in some other books before, but basically it's like having an not really an accountability partner, so to say. I guess it could be a partner, maybe someone that's reading the book at the same time, or maybe it could be your spouse, or maybe it could be your best friend. But basically, it should be someone that knows exactly what they're looking for when you're acting out. The book suggests that if you break one of the rules in the book, then you owe that person. This was written in like 1930 something, right? It says like 10 cents in the book, but you could since it's 2021 now, you could raise it to like $1 or $5 or to even $10 if you want to. It depends, right? So basically an accountability partner to make sure that you are following through with the principles in this book. And anytime you break that rule, or they catch you, or maybe you catch yourself breaking it and you're honest, then you owe that person some money. So I think that's an interesting one to apply specifically for this book, maybe for other books that are very practical. But yeah, it's an interesting one. So take it as it is, and decide whether you want to use it or not. It's in this video because it's in this book right here. So right on. And tip number 8 is a really important one as well. It's actually a reflective process. In the book, it calls it, let me refresh my memory here. It says, check up on your weekly progress you're making. Ask yourself what mistakes you have made, what improvement and what lessons you have learned for the future. So there's a story in the book that has this guy who has reflected every Saturday night. He doesn't go out with friends or family or anything like that. They know not to bother him during this like hour period where he's got his journal and he's just writing down like reflection of the mistakes and the successes of his week. And I think this is a really important process when we are reading so much, when we're being so active. It's really important to be reflective and ask yourself, what's going well? What can I do better? What am I going to do next? How am I feeling about it, right? And just taking a half an hour or more, if you want to, just to sit there and write your ideas out and write your action steps and what are you going to do about it, and just try to become a better person through everything that you've been learning, through everything that you've been doing. Reflective process is probably one of the most therapeutic things that you can do, because you're just sharing it with yourself. You're just writing it down. You have a record of it. It's not going anywhere. It's just going to be right there in your private space. So you have no fear of judgment from other people or anything like that. It's just for your eyes. So I think that's a really cool thing to do, really beneficial, really healthy, mentally healthy. And I highly recommend doing it if you have not been doing it at all. And the last one, yes, number 9 here is kind of like a success journal. Here in the book, it says, in the back of the book, there's some blank pages. Keep a record of all the successes that you have done through these principles. So yeah, I think having like a success journal is kind of a good thing. You can write down the successes of what you have done well. That way you can, refer back to that. This could be for anything in your life, anything that you've read, anything that you've done, and just keeping a record of what you've done well. And that will help you to feel better. Of course, during the weekly reflection, that one is focusing on, both sides, your successes, your failures, what can you do better. This last one is specifically talking about the successes. What have you done well? And you can use that as your motivation to continue doing well. So yeah, these are the top 9 suggestions from How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And if you haven't read the book, then definitely pick it up. I'm probably about a quarter of the way in, so I've got a little while left to go. But I thought these 9 tips were really good for readers out there. I know that a lot of you following this channel are readers, of course, and so these will be beneficial for how you read, how you remember, and how you apply what you have read now, in the past, in the future. So yeah, please do subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.